Everyone wants to lose weight fast, but how quickly should you lose it? What's realistic? What's safe? And what's just plain unsustainable? Well, that is really for you to decide, isn't it? And we're going to talk about that. And what we're also going to talk about in this video is the number one thing you need to lose weight. This kind of stuff is really BBC bite-sized entry-level information here, but there are some absolute whoppers out there who still don't know this. I'm also going to explain weight loss on a scale from losing weight quickly and losing weight slowly, and things to consider based on that rate of weight loss. And finally, I'm going to wrap up this bad boy with what rate you should consider. So sit tight. Ironically, the next point I'm going to speak to you about after this will be why you're not losing weight. Like the number one actual reason. But there are actually people out there who can't lose weight right now, just because their life is too hectic. And they're going to say something along the lines of, I cannot for the life of me lose weight. And what I would say to those people is just to get a grasp of your diet right now, in any way you can to stop gaining weight, because maintaining your body weight is a lot better than gaining it. Think of it like stopping a leak in your bathroom. Yeah, you might have to redecorate the wall. The water from the leak is ruined. But addressing the leak first and stopping that is much more important than sorting the wall, which is just going to get ruined again. So you want to get your diet under control first. Alright? Then, over the next coming days and weeks and months, when you digest my fantastic information, you'll hopefully be in a position to start losing weight properly. You know what the actual best way to lose weight for this summer would be? Signing up to my emails, because they teach you everything you need to know about doing it. And guess what? They are for free, except from the small expense of needing your email address. But if you don't sign up to my emails, it is not a big deal. It just means you're either not going to lose the weight that you wanted this year, or you lose it in an unsustainable way and then put it back on after. Which is fine, because don't worry, there's always next year, isn't there? Or the next year after that, or the next year after that. But how many times have you actually said that throughout your life? There's always next year, or I'm going to start on Monday, but that never actually comes. Because let me give you two scenarios here. You could lose the weight for this holiday coming up in the summer, which will likely be by methods you've tried in the past, like over-restricting, having to eat boring foods, too much cardio, excluding your family life, having a diet that doesn't include your social life, etc. The usual downfalls. And then guess what happens after your holiday? You pack it back on. But do not worry, I've got a video coming up to stop that from happening. Or you go with scenario 2, where you start learning good habits are arguably more important for keeping weight off long term. Because if you gain weight immediately after your holiday, I would argue that's not been a successful period of dieting in my opinion. A successful diet, for those who don't know, is managing to keep it off long term, or at least keeping your weight under control in some manner. Immediately gaining weight after you're finished is really just a massive waste of time, especially if you end up putting more weight on, which is quite common unfortunately. And would you believe as well, I've got a video coming on that too. And on top of that, these next bunch of videos I'll be posting will all be about getting yourself sorted for some sort of event like a holiday or a wedding or something along those lines, which I personally don't think is a good long-term strategy for changing your life for the better. But some people will genuinely get good results with having an end goal in sight like a wedding, etc. But more on that later. For now though, I'll explain the one thing you actually need to lose weight, and that is a calorie deficit. You may already know this, or maybe not, or you might just follow someone that doesn't believe in science and thermodynamics, because there are health professionals out there who don't believe in this. Mental, right? The bottom line is though, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. And it is as simple as that. You might think that you eat a lot, or you do tons of cardio, so you must be losing weight. You might only eat healthy foods. You might have the perfect diet. You might collect a liquid from a unicorn nipple, let it ferment and aerate for 30 days, and then drink it, because it boosts metabolism. But what it simply comes down to, that simple calorie deficit. And if you're not in one for a prolonged period of time, which could be described as a number of days or weeks consistently, you're not losing weight in any sort of meaningful, permanent, life-changing way, friend. No matter how much you're telling yourself you're doing it right. The ever so slight issue with a calorie deficit for most of you out there is you cannot 100% guarantee that you're in one. Not objectively anyway. We're really just going off by chance due to the lack of scientific equipment you've got in your house, unless you're a crazy professor of some sort. It is fairly easy to pretty much guarantee you're in one consistently though, and you can do that by putting as many things in your favour to improve the chances of that, such as watching calories, monitoring steps, your gym work, cardio, lower calorie meals, etc. There's a billion ways to do it with different degrees that you yourself need to be happy with, and then on top of that you obviously need to be happy with what you're tracking and monitoring consistently. But the more things you do track and monitor, the better the chances of it actually happening. So it really just comes down to preference. I'm obviously going to argue that the more you do track and watch and monitor, the quicker you'll likely get there, and then stop having to do it, rather than dragging it out longer than it needs to be. And obviously then the more experience you gain, the easier it then becomes. So the good habits and the benefits can be found in the work that you're not doing right now, which leads me on to my next point very nicely, and likely why you're here, which is, how fast can you actually lose weight? I will get into the things to consider in a minute. As for actual rates though, it's actually difficult to give them in such a generic fashion that will satisfy my monumental amount of viewers who actually watch this. But for a quick rate, it's 3,500 calories and a pound of fat. So to lose a pound of fat a week, just put yourself in a deficit of 3,500 calories, and you can do that by restricting food or expending energy over a week. And that's really it, in theory anyway. I do say in theory though, due to body weight fluctuations, it's really hard to objectively prove that is 1 pound of fat that you're losing. What I would say, if you wanted a better answer for ideal rates for you, just go search on Google, you lazy twat. The point I do want to make though is think of this like a scale. I was going to call it like a miserable happiness scale, because some people would say that a severely restrictive diet is miserable. That's not necessarily true, because there's plenty of people out there happily succeeding with an aggressive diet. We're going to call it something like the slow and fast rate of weight loss scale, or something like that. A really boring name. Anyway, so on one side here you have a severe calorie deficit, and then on this side you have a minor calorie deficit. And then you have everything in between. Now, the likely consensus for most people is a severe calorie deficit would be difficult, because you're likely going to be eating more food on the minor side. But as 2025 people, we cannot assume that this side is going to be miserable. Just like I should not assume that you're going to automatically sign up to my 31 emails that I send out for free, which help you finally lose that weight that you've been trying to get rid of ever since before you can remember. And I've even made them bite-sized, so it doesn't overcomplicate things for you. And the details are below. So even though it sounds like one side's going to be miserable and the other one's going to have a more enjoyable time on paper, it might not actually be the case, which we're going to touch on in a minute. But first, what is actually the difference between the two? Well, a severe deficit, you'll likely feel more tired because you lack the energy. You don't have to massively change the amount of food that you eat that you're likely used to. You'll take longer from recovering from the gym sessions that you should be doing, resulting in more aches and pains that you then need to get over. You're going to have to sack off nights out because you don't have the calories to go to them, so then your social life takes a blow. Although there are plenty of other things you could be doing with your friends that doesn't include drinking or eating decadent restaurant foods, so it can be difficult if it's not managed properly. But with time and experience, you can dull down the impact it has on your life by making smarter and better choices. But what's ultimately going to happen, or it should anyway, is you're going to lose weight pretty quickly if you managed it properly. So there's obviously pros to this rate as well, despite people maybe viewing it as negative, whereas on the opposite side of this scale is the slower weight loss rate. So this is likely viewed as a more enjoyable side, like I said before, because it likely lowers the issues the faster rate of weight loss provides. You're going to be less tired, you can go out more and be more social, you'll recover better, you'll maybe sleep better, less stressed, likely to continue to get stronger. The downside to this though, is your changes in body weight might be slow, maybe even too slow in fact, at a rate of weight loss you eventually might not be happy with because it's taken so long. Some of you might get to the point where you're like, will you just hurry up and disappear? Weight loss is weight loss though, so don't be too hard on yourself. As for what side is better, each to their own. Some people love the grind of a severe calorie deficit and succeed really well in it, so there is no judging. I'm just giving you the advice for you to decide yourself. So now you might be asking, what rate should I go for, James? And you've not got to like this answer, because it does require you to take some responsibility. And that answer is, it's on you. Because if I'm going to start making decisions for you, I'd be as well starting living your life and wiping your ass whilst I'm at it. But if you wanted my actual opinion from most of you out there, I would get it over and done as soon as possible. That might mean venturing more on the quicker side. Just realise the implications they cause, like tiredness, recovery, etc. Only recommend this as most people have a terrible time dieting. So why prolong it? And why not get some goals and wins under your belt as soon as possible? Get succeeding for once. But if you were my client, and I know a bit more about you and your situation, I would probably advise differently. But for you people watching out there, think of your weight loss like driving a car at speed. There are times you can absolutely hoot it down the road, and sometimes you have to ease up before the car explodes. And the same goes for your diet. There's going to be times you have an empty week, and you can have everything absolutely dialed in, and then the following week you ease up on it because you have a work trip or whatever, or you want to go out for the weekend, but you can still be in a deficit. And I would complement this, get over and done my advice, with embracing the new situation you find yourself in, with new goals, new foods, new chances for recipes, new ways to enjoy your life. Just see it as a challenge, because the more difficult situations you find yourself in experience, your next diet will be infinitely easier, until it's not even an effort. And then you will never be overweight again because you'll know what to do. Eating a decent amount of food to try and grow does eventually become a bit tiresome, so changing it up every now and again for a few weeks and months of the year is a class way to try and prep and cook different foods. Again, this is just my opinion. You don't need to listen to me, unless I'm giving out advice on the absolute class emails I send over 31 days that will help you never have to follow another Fitfluencer's diet and advice, because I've broken all the information you need into 31 bite-sized emails you can read whilst you're having your morning poop. I'm calling it the Lazy Dad's Guide to Losing Weight. Anyway, now to finish up. Last week marked an exact year of posting online and flinging a monumental amount of information your way. Not shite, useful information. And it's got me around 280,000 views over this period of time on YouTube, which I think is pretty impressive. So I do want to thank you for your support. And speaking of support, this health and fitness malarkey sometimes needs a bit of support. So I've made this video right here about that, and how you can utilise it to finally get the results that you've been longing for. So I hope it helps, and I also hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.